a clay model of a Vauxhall Astra and then pinch it inwards a little bit in both axes and then stretch it upwards slightly, well, the answer is you get a Vauxhall Mokka, which I'm in today. I always thought that the Mokka was closer in size to the Corsa, like the Duke is to something like a Micra, but it's actually quite close in size to the Astra. If you look up here, you'll see a little pop-out banner to the review of the Astra, which I did recently. Because I'm so well versed with the Astra, it's probably going to be a bit of a comparison really between the two cars, and this one is obviously a little SUV, I guess, and it rides quite high up, and you definitely get that feeling of being up above other people. And the weird thing is with cars like this is that even the other cars that are the same height up as this, you still find that you feel quite superior even compared to them, even though they're the same. So I don't know what that's about. I think it's just the transition between being in a low down car and something like this. This is actually the Vauxhall Mokka X, which maybe sounds like it's a different trim level or some upgrade, but it's actually just the facelifted model, because it used to be called the Mokka. The name sounds like a coffee, and it actually is a type of coffee bean, so it's not a coincidence that it sounds like a chocolatey coffee. First impressions of this car in comparison to the Astra, it's actually very similar in here. The Mokka X, at least, is very similar to the Astra in that the dashboard is all laid out the same way, it's the same shape, and you've got the pretty much exactly the same infotainment system with Android Auto, which is spot on, because the infotainment system itself is fine, but it's great with Android Auto or Apple CarPlay, either one. That comes highly recommended from me always, because Android Auto and Apple CarPlay are made by the people who know what to do with software. Weirdly, in this car, in the Mokka, it just seems slightly lower quality. The materials don't look quite as nice, and they feel kind of, I mean, this kind of feels a bit weird. It's definitely well screwed together. This car's done 31,000 miles and I can't hear any creaks or rattles, except for one, which is the clutch pedal. I don't know if you'll be able to hear that, but that's kind of annoying, but I'm sure that could be remedied. This particular model is the 1.4 litre turbo petrol. It has 140 horsepower, and round town it nips along nicely. I think the weight of this car is significantly heavier than the Astra, so performance is blunted slightly from that. There is also a 1.4 turbo with 150 horsepower, which is only 10 more, so I'm not sure how different that would feel. That extra 10 might make all the difference, I don't know. And then there's a 1.6 litre petrol, which was probably the least powerful engine, because it had no turbo. And then there's 3 diesel options, which are all quite similar in power. So around town, the steering is really light. It's really just easy to use. The car feels smaller than it is. I think it's probably partly because obviously it's a very tall vehicle, but it's not too long and it's not too wide, so when you're nipping around through town, it feels like a small car, despite when you then park it up and have a look at it, it looks quite big, it looks quite imposing, but it's definitely an easy car to drive around town, a good runabout. The seats are comfortable. These ones are cloth ones, heated cloth ones, and they're adjustable. You can bring the part out underneath your thighs, and they have almost no bolstering, so again, this car's not a driver's car, so when you're going around the corners, it's not going to hold you in, but that's fine because you don't really need it. The ride's quite good around town. You can kind of go over the bumps quite quickly, and it just skips over them.
Hi, welcome to Starbucks. I'm going to get started here today.
Hiya, can I have a Mokka?
Yep, and can I get you anything else?
Thanks a lot, you too. Now to try it out in a little car park. Just nip into a space. Easy peasy. Oh, it's a nice 7 Series there, old 7 Series. So while I'm here in this car park, I'll just have a little talk about the interior of this car. How practical is it? Well, I've got my bottle, and that fits. It's quite a fat bottomed thing, and it fits in the door pockets fine. So the door pockets are a good size. The cup holders in the middle are a decent size, and they're deep, so nothing's going to come falling over in there. Little centre console storage. It's quite small. Relatively small glove box. Some of it seems to be eaten into some of the space there on the left. Not a whole lot of interesting bits of storage. There's a little tiny one on the right hand side of the dashboard. You could probably fit your sunglasses in there. Climate control is dual zone, but it's the old style one where you have to adjust both. They're not linked, so if you want both sides of the car to change temperature, you have to change both dials. This car's kind of strangely specified. It's got a heated steering wheel, which is, I bloody love those. Heated steering wheels are excellent. Not in the middle of summer right now, but you've also got heated seats as well. But then in the way of other tech, I mean, you've got cruise control, as you would expect. That's always quite easy to use in Vauxhall. Actually, just nice little click with the thumb, and you know, you're not looking for stalks or anything. All on the steering wheel. Auto headlights, which in this car, in the Mokka, you can turn them off. In the Astra, you can't. The auto headlights, if the car wants them to be on, they'll be on. Whereas in this car, you can switch them off if you don't want them. Now, the interesting thing about the Mokka is it's always quite easy to find. You just see its little roof poking over there. Such a tall car. So that's in its favour, you know. So from the outside, this car actually looks quite serious. Like, it's got some pretty big fat tyres on it. Even though the alloys are 18 inch, the tyres are quite big. And it sort of gives it a look of something a little bit more serious in terms of off-roading ability, which obviously something like 95% of these Mokkas don't have the off-roading ability, because they did do a 4-wheel drive model of this car, but I had a look on Auto Trader and there were something like 30 of them in the whole country for sale, and over 1,000 of the front-wheel drive models. So yes, there's a 4-wheel drive one, but you struggle to find it. I think most people aren't interested in 4-wheel drive, and my opinions on 4-wheel drive is that, as he says as he mounts the curb, you're better off just getting some winter tyres. If you're worried about traction in the winter, then winter tyres beats 4-wheel drive hands down anyway, so I wouldn't worry too much about that. You do get some nice ground clearance in this vehicle, so that's definitely helpful. Now there's one thing I raved on about in the Astra review about that car, and that was the handling of that car and the pin sharp steering. Like, in that car, when you turn the steering wheel, the car follows exactly. It's super accurate and really a joy to use. Whereas, as you might expect in this car, it's a lot less. So much more standard SUV, soft roader. It doesn't have that same sharpness to the steering. If you want a driver's car and you want something to have fun in, then this is not the one. Obviously, I mean, it probably goes without saying. Interestingly, the gear shift is still a little bit notchy, like the Astra, but it actually feels nicer. It's more enjoyable to slot in to gear than the Astra. So that's the one thing it's got in terms of the driving dynamics or experience over the Astra. Just going to try the brakes out. Yeah, brakes are good. Don't have to push them hard. Well servoed, not overly sensitive like some. That's the most irritating thing for me is brakes when you just tap them and the servo kicks in and sends you through the windscreen. It's not like that. It's a nice happy middle ground. There's a armrest here, which is good for the motorway. Get your arm on it like that and cruise. But then the problem is that when it's there, the handbrake is hard to get hold of. So every time you want to use the handbrake, you've got to get the armrest out of the way. So it suffers from a similar problem as the Astra. It's really loud on the motorway. I don't know, it's tyre roar. I mean, you might be able to pick that up. I'm only doing 60 now. If I increase speed, it just gets louder and louder. So it's not. I wouldn't say it's particularly suited to the motorway. It's quite. It's pretty comfortable, and you've obviously got that armrest. The other problem is that although it's got that 140-ish horsepower, when you put your foot down at motorway speeds, it doesn't really pick up very quickly. It takes a bit of time to get going. So around town, it's really nice and nippy. But for motorway work, I would suggest picking up something else, really. It's also pretty economical, this 1.4. I've just had a blast up the motorway and a little bit of town driving, and it's currently sat at 48 miles per gallon, which for a petrol turbo is, in a heavy car, is pretty good actually. Quite impressed. And then when you need some power, has it got some? Yes, it's got some. It goes all right. Again, I think that the weight of the car doesn't help. The engine sounds all right. It's quite muted actually. It's quite quiet, which is probably what you want from a car like this. Trim level wise, I suspect that this car is the Elite model, but it doesn't actually say anywhere on it that it's the Elite model. But what gives it away is the heated steering wheel and heated seats, and the leather trim on the side of these seats. It's weirdly spec'd just like my Astra, which is that it's got heated seats and heated steering wheel, but it hasn't got parking sensors, and it hasn't got any of the active safety features, which most people don't like those anyway, myself included, so I don't miss those, but parking sensors would be nice. I would guess the SRI trim might be a better bet if you want some of the other features like that. Worth checking whether it comes with parking sensors and such. Euro NCAP tested this car back in 2012 when it came out, and it achieved 5 stars, which is really good. It's the maximum star rating for crash test safety, but that was in 2012 and they haven't retested it since, and it was good for its day. We can only say that. The luggage capacity is quite good. It's, as always with these SUV style cars, it's got slightly less space than the equivalent hatchback. So I mean, I looked in that boot and it did look slightly smaller, and I looked it up, and the Astra's got 370 litres of boot space and the Mokka's about 350, so it's quite similar. It's basically now time to find out what the Mokka X is like in the back seats, and for that I'm going to hand over to backseat JJ. I'll just ask him, what's it like in the back of the Mokka X, backseat JJ? Hi pal. Yeah, it's quite nice back here. There's a lot of headroom, as you'd expect from the shape of this car and its height. Yeah. And I'm 6 foot, the same height as you, and I can fit behind you all right. So yeah, I suspected it'd be pretty good. I mean, there's not much back here. Electric windows, one little light up here, and some adjustable headrests, and three belts across. Usual ISOFIX points. No ventilation or anything down here, no controls, and that's it. Yeah, so back to you. All right, well, thank you backseat JJ for that. That was yeah, that's what I thought. It's yeah, pretty spacious back there, and headroom and all that. So another nice thing about this car is it completely flies under the radar. There's nobody looks twice at you, and people tend to be polite, and they let you out of junctions and they'll thank you for letting them go. And yeah, it doesn't attract any attention, and you're not going to look like a bit of a, certainly not going to look like a snob driving it. So there's something to be said for cars like that where you're pretty much anonymous when you're driving around. Should you buy a Vauxhall Mokka? And I need to stop comparing it to the Astra for a minute, because you might just be in the market for an SUV style car, and if you are, then yeah, I think you should definitely consider this car, because, as I said, it's the coolest thing about it is it feels like a small car, yet it kind of looks like a big car, and it's got that happy middle ground really. It also feels very open and spacious, so it's not claustrophobic like a Duke. It's kind of a fun little, well, it's not fun to drive, but it's kind of a happy little car. It rides well, it seems to be well screwed together. The only other thing is, obviously, if you're going on the motorway a lot, then it might not be the right car. If you've got one of these cars, I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. Do you like it? And which one do you have? And if you don't have one, then I hope you've learned something about this car, and this you know, watch a few more reviews, watch a few other people, but hopefully this will have added something to your knowledge about the car. And if it has, then remember to hit the like button, as always. And thank you very much for watching, and see you in the next video.
No.
Mokka. Mockery.